To some extent, all managers engage in planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. To this point, we've discussed planning, which involves establishing goals and outlining plans to achieve those goals, organizing, which entails determining who in the organization will make decisions and how work should be performed, and leading, essentially motivating our employees to accomplish the goals and objectives that we establish. The last general management function, and one that we'll spend more time talking about in this video, is control. If you recall from earlier in this course, control involves establishing standards of performance, measuring performance, and taking the necessary actions to correct performance if appropriate. A big task of managers today is actually measuring whether or not the desired performance has been met. Now, most people would agree that measuring performance, identifying problem areas, and filling in those gaps is good business. That seems fairly intuitive, as you wouldn't want employees engaging in the behaviors that aren't leading to the desired outcomes. The bigger issue, and one that we're going to focus on in this video, is not how managers should engage in this control function, but what actually should they control. Now, the traditional benchmark or standard when measuring performance tends to be financial. And this isn't a bad thing necessarily, as it's important for businesses to be profitable. So obviously looking into financial performance is a logical step. Managers focus on measures like costs and profits because they're easy to measure and they're important to the success of the organization. But the problem with focusing solely on one measure is it may present a false reality. Let me give you an example. If costs are the yardstick by which the organization measures success, then managers may decide to lay off staff as a way of minimizing costs. On the surface, this appears to be a good decision as costs are lower, which will probably result in the department achieving its goals. But is there a long-term impact on the organization? By laying off workers, do we create a work environment in which people feel they lack job security? Perhaps they don't perform as well because they're diverting time and energy to finding other work. Also, what impact do these layoffs have on our customers? Do they increase customer wait times, result in poorer customer service? And that's the problem with using financial standards solely to manage performance. Those unintended consequences or hidden costs are likely to be overlooked in a system where management is simply measured based on their ability to keep costs down. In light of this issue, the Balanced Scorecard was created in 1992 by Robert Kaplan and David Norton. This approach called managers to measure organizational performance in 4 different areas. So instead of solely looking at costs or profits, which may simply reflect short-term performance, the Balanced Scorecard adds in 3 additional perspectives to focus more on long-term performance. In addition to the financial perspective, the Balanced Scorecard also includes a customer perspective, internal business process perspective, and learning and growth perspective. Now, the Balanced Scorecard starts with the organization's vision and strategy. These areas serve almost as a guide to the 4 perspectives. So when managers are establishing performance objectives and selecting different measures, they're making those decisions based on their vision and strategy. This is important because it forces managers to take a long-term approach to what they measure, instead of focusing on short-term results that may not lead to long-term success. Let's briefly walk through each of these stages to get a feel for what is actually being measured. The first area is the financial perspective. The underlying question that guides the evaluation of this area is, to succeed financially, how should we appear to our shareholders? Similar to the other perspectives, managers will establish a goal or objective, select a way to measure it, select a target to strive towards, and then develop an actionable plan to achieve the desired target. Common financial measures include cash flow, profits, various financial ratios, and even EVA, or economic value added. These measures help the organization assess financial performance and identify problem areas to address. As we've discussed, focusing simply on the financial perspective can be harmful to the organization, as these measures and targets may not be good indications as to whether an organization is accomplishing their long-term objectives. So let's talk about another area of the Balanced Scorecard. In addition to measuring financial performance, managers should also consider the customer perspective. In this area, the main question that needs to be answered is, to achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? Depending upon the goals and objectives established by management, a number of different measures may be used. These can include customer retention, which represents the number of customers who stay with the organization, or even customer defections, which represent the exact opposite. Both customer retention and defections are important metrics. Although they don't directly measure profitability, the number of customers will certainly have an impact on an organization's bottom line. Another metric that may serve an organization well in this area is customer satisfaction. Although this can be a little misleading, generally, more satisfied customers stay with the organization in comparison to their dissatisfied counterparts. Another area of the balanced scorecard is the internal business process perspective. Managers here are attempting to answer the question, to satisfy our customers and shareholders, what must we excel in? As the name suggests, this perspective focuses on the processes, decisions, and actions made by management and the employees of an organization. So, what are some possible forms of measurement when evaluating the internal business process perspective? Product quality, although important in all organizations, may be more important to some than others. So, measuring something like the number of product defects, which represent products that don't function as they were intended, could be a useful metric. If the organization differentiates itself based upon speed of service or delivery, then cycle time, or how long it takes for the organization to deliver a product, may be appropriate. The important thing is that managers need to select a measurement that obtains some type of useful information that is actionable. The last part of the balanced scorecard is the learning and growth perspective. From this perspective, managers attempt to answer the question, to achieve our visions, how will we sustain our ability to change and improve? We've talked at great length about the uncertainty of today's business climate. With so much happening outside of management's control, it's important to be continuously improving so that organizations are prepared for the future. In the learning and growth perspective, managers are attempting to outline those actions that will allow the organization to continue to improve. One important measure that is often overlooked is employee morale. Employee morale is extremely important to organizational success, as several studies have shown a link between employee morale and customer service. This seems to be fairly logical as well, since an unhappy employee is less likely to deliver outstanding customer service. As a way of gauging employee morale, management may decide to solicit employee suggestions related to current processes, work environment conditions, and other areas. This is useful because employees are in a far better position to recommend improvements to current processes since they perform them on a daily basis. This exposure gives employees a good understanding of the process as well as some things that may not work so well. Now that we've discussed each of the different perspectives, and as we close this video, let's talk about how they all tie together. The benefit of using the balanced scorecard approach is that we obtain a more accurate picture of performance. Another benefit is organizations can link metrics in the different perspectives. We've already talked about how employee morale has an impact on customer satisfaction, which represents a link between the learning and growth perspective and the customer perspective. Customer satisfaction can also have an impact on sales revenue, which may represent a metric from the financial perspective, and product defects, which are included in the internal business process perspective, may affect gross margins, which is a financial metric. So what I'm getting at here is that savvy organizations can select those metrics that lead to increased performance in other areas. Perhaps the organization identifies that something like the number of accidents on the job, an internal business process metric, has a significant spillover effect on the other areas. As a result, focusing energies on this area is likely to lead to much greater performance outcomes. Thank you for watching this video on the Balanced Scorecard. If you want more from Alan East Business Academy, you can subscribe to our channel, download our weekly podcast, which you can find on iTunes and Stitcher, or go to alaneastbusinessacademy.com, where you'll find additional content, quizzes, and more. Thanks for watching.